A misty morning greets the patrol coming down from their firebase, searching for the sappers that fled the night before. The point man disappears into a cloud of earth with an almighty bang as the rest of the squad cries, "Contact!" No ambush greets them. The mine was months old, and worse still, was of US issue. Blackhawks rushed to the beleaguered outpost, finally free to move after the destruction of enemy anti-air capability the night prior. Medical supplies and personnel are on board to save as many as they can, though for some, the night's wait was too long. Mine clearing finally opened the main road to an armored assault, and with fresh supplies arriving in the morning, the crews are eager to avenge their losses. A rainy morning with awful visibility. Soldiers sent to salvage Operation Steel Pegasus ready themselves in the hasty defenses constructed by their logistical team the night before. In the distance, the rumble of Altus Armed Forces engines is audible. Welcome to Persist. For the regulars of my channel, this video is a little different, serving as a form of tutorial and introduction to my new mod for ArmA 3. You'll see this crop up in my videos soon if you didn't already watch the test campaign we ran over at Twitch. For the rest of you, welcome to Persist. The primary goal of Persist is to give mission makers a story-making device to allow creation of long-form campaigns in ArmA 3. I'll walk through my mod in the editor now using the Pegasus Fallen campaign as an example. There is also a player guide linked in the description for a basic summary of what all the roles will have to consider. Alright, let's get into Persist. I'm going to go in order of just things and explain from there because that'll do the best to keep me from rambling. To start with, the mod can work entirely through modules, though there are some options to actually use scripts, which is something I even recommend if we were to go, for instance, auto-detailed load. Auto-detailed load is a module that will automatically do the detailed load section of Persist, which is used for session 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, onward into the sunset. A quick note here in regards to two things. An addition to Persist I've just included requires that one slot at least be named Persist 1. You can do that by naming them here. This is the slot the detailed load data will come from, so presumably the mission maker will want to be in this slot. This is to allow for multiple missions to be run and also not screw up your own save if you go to play someone else's Persist mission. It's also important as the eventual upgrade to the player loadout system, which myself and the Cadians are working on, will use a similar system to this, so the players will have to be named Persist 1, Persist 2, Persist 3, Persist 4, so on and so forth. For now at least, you only need Persist 1. The other thing to note is that I didn't mention that you don't actually have to use detailed load at all. If you don't want it, you can just not use it. Nearly everything in Persist is entirely optional. Back to the original me. But in this case, I would actually instead recommend people run it in their mission init as a way to sort of control when it actually activates. For instance, if you have your own heavy scripts running at the start of your mission, which is quite common, you can then delay this until after those scripts have run, and then run this script. And of course, you're free to ignore my advice. So everything is handled with modules, but also we have up here on the top left, we can go to Tools, to Persist RCO, and activate a few of the Eden editor side of things. These are different methods of loading persistence data. For instance, it won't delete anything when it loads the data, it won't load any of the crates. This is more of a holdover from the old version of Persist. It's not really necessary, it just lets you see what crates should have in them, because actually loading inventories in the Eden editor is exceedingly difficult and buggy and not really a thing as far as I can tell. And then both of them. We also have the saving options here, which lets you save your persistence data to your clipboard, so you can put it in a text file somewhere. I know it's not the fanciest saving method, but I do recommend you do it regardless in case you accidentally overwrite your data somehow. Though if you're running multiple Persist campaigns, you may be clinically insane. And just a quick note that my insurers want me to say, if you have anything other than the persistence data in your clipboard when you press load persistence data, it is highly likely your ArmA will just straight up crash. Before we go into how we actually get our persistence data, we'll touch on the limited fortify system first. Fortify is a system in ASEX that allows players to build what they want, little buildings, bases, fobs, so on and so forth. Limited fortify makes this system work like squad. For instance, here we have a big vehicle, which is a box truck, and we have no small vehicles in this operation, and a small object, which is a cargo net box. These have a build range and contain a certain amount of supplies, so if we're stood next to our box over here, it has 1,000 supplies and we can build in 50 meters around it. Once you run out of supplies, you have to head back to a limited fortify station, in which case I've made these crates that station, and you can refill them. Fortify is a really nice and neat system, but one of the biggest issues it has is if you want to give players lots of options in terms of what they can actually build, it has to all be done through the ACE interaction menu. If you have 30 options, that means you suddenly need to pick from a radial list of 30 dots. As a stopgap method, I have different lists that you can pick and choose from, so in this case we're only using 3 of the lists, but you can have 6 in total. Players can switch the list at any fob center or at any building supplies source. An important note is that these lists are global. When they switch, all players' lists will switch. There is nothing I can do about that, that's just part of ASEX Fortify. Guess who screwed up and is recording this for a second time? We're going to go through the rest of the modules now and then do a little demonstration in-game. The first module is nice and simple. It's the add information to end of round report. Here's the information. The enemy commander is dead, and if that module is run, it'll be added to the end of round report. It's a little optional system I included as a way to sort of see if you've completed any optional objectives and such in a mission. Here, for example, we have this little trigger that will activate if the mortar gunners are dead, and at which point it will activate if mortars were disabled during the attack. Simple, basic, and optional. Next, we have the save action, which is the core of Persist and is pretty much the only non-optional module. Syncing this to an object will allow you to save with it, and this is what sort of defines everything that will actually be saved in the operation. There is the fob center and the marker, permitted fob objects, the vehicles and crates it will try and save, the mines that it will save in order to form minefields, and the blocker object to stop deleting. We'll talk about that in a moment. These two modules are just for ease of use. Over here we have the fob objects. We sync everything we want to save to it. These will be deleted at the start of the operation. And then we sync this to the save action over here. This save action is synced to a whiteboard that will give us the option to save the mission. Additionally, over here we have the vehicles and crates and statics that we want saved during the operation. That blocker object is here. This is a little rudimentary system which basically stops these things from being deleted. Everything within 100 meters of the specified object, in this case the VR selector, won't be deleted. The reason for that is that when you run the persist loading, what it actually does first is deletes all the objects that are currently in the mission that it's going to later load back, as otherwise you would duplicate the objects instead. You wouldn't want to delete these objects though, as they delete themselves at the start of the operation and are actually just here in order to record some data. You don't have to sync this VR select or anything, all you have to do is put it within 100 meters and it will work. The last two elements are the detailed loads. This one is for testing, it lets you sync it to an object so you can get a quick ace interaction, but we don't really want to use that one. The correct system is to use this module or to run it in your own init server SQF. The detailed load handles anything that wasn't possible in the Eden editor itself. For instance, let's say in the last operation this vehicle has lost one of its windows, it's been shot out, and it's lost its middle left tire. At the start of the next operation, those things will also be true. It'll record the exact amount of ammunition, amount of fuel, and let's say in this case for an ace fuel truck, which has say 10,000 liters in the back of this, it will record the exact amount of fuel it has left over. This system also includes player loadouts, but we're going to talk more about them later. Let's do a little demonstration. We've named this logi guy Persist 1, and we're going to try and demonstrate all the features of Persist as quick as we can. Okay, limited fortify is initialized. We're now going to go over to here. We're going to build a little bunker next to this truck. Okay, the bunker is built. We now need to put the fob center down, and this is what will actually record the bunker being built. If a fob center is not put down, for instance, let's say players just wanted to build some sandbags for protection from enemy fire, then it won't be recorded. It needs to be within 100 meters of one of these. Of course, you can change what these actually is. You could make it a banana, you can make whatever you want. Any object, you just need to specify it in the mission. This truck now has 925 supplies left. We're going to move this crate over to here. We're going to shoot one of our magazines. And cause some hearing damage. There we go. And reload. Okay, we now have 2 magazines spare instead of 3 spare magazines. We're also going to go into here and we're going to put, let's put our grenade and one of the pistol rounds. There we go. And we'll put that into our backpack and we'll put that in the chest. We'll also put our pistol in the chest. Along with the earplugs that we should have really used. Important note, if you are a player at the end of a mission, take out your earplugs. They will not save if they are in your ears. I can't save them there, just take them out and put them in your inventory again. Thank you, bye. An important note, if for whatever reason you don't have a vest or perhaps a uniform on as well, there is a slight bug with the uniform system, the player loadout system that is, in that it might throw you up an error and saying, you know, error creating weapon item core kind of thing. You can completely ignore this, it doesn't actually mean anything, the system will entirely still function, it's just a vanilla ArmA thing that I actually can't change, it's literally just something I can't fix. We've just refueled this Badger, and if we check the remaining fuel, we have 9,999 liters left after refueling the Badger. We've done just about everything that can be recorded. We're now going to touch on the limited fortify station and the actual save mechanic. The limited fortify station can add supplies to newly spawned vehicles. That's for use, for instance, if a Zeus spawns a new form of, let's say, box truck that was going to carry our supplies. We can also refill building supplies here, so that would let us refill anything around us. I've just realized I accidentally refilled this, and for demonstration I need it to not be refilled, so let's change how many supplies it has. There we go. Another option the station has is letting you collect player supplies. This will put 50 player supplies in your backpack, quotation marks. It'll just put them on you, basically. What this means is that you can go out and build buildings on your own. They'll disappear if you drop the fortify tool, if they run out, or if the operation ends. They do not persist between operations. The general intent for these is, let's say you're a little, sneaky spike team or whatever in Vietnam, or just some, deep recon team. You go out go into the trees and you go and you build a little camp in the forest and you hide there for one operation, let's say, and then in the start of the next operation you carry on. It's only a little bit of supplies, it's only intended for, small little camps and such in the wilderness. Now we go over to the save area. First of all, we can display the end of mission information. We haven't unlocked anything. If we'd killed those mortars, we would have had the mortar message, but now we just have Persist session is coming to a close. We're now going to save the mission. And there we go, mission saved. Now we back out. What we can do from here is we can go down to Persist RCO and load our saved data. And there we go. The Badger is in the same place, the fuel truck is in the same place, this crate has moved. Over here we can see we've built our little sandbags and everything. We have a marker showing where the fob is, and also if we go into the map, we'll have a fob anchor place as well. We can rename that to whatever we want, or we can just delete it. And if we look across the map, we'll notice we have a bunch of markers showing the locations of all the groups. Here we can see we've got Windmill 1-2 and Windmill 1-1, which were both... Oh, hang on. Never mind. Sorry, I was wrong there. We have Windmill 1-2, and we have Spotter 1. There's Windmill 1-1, they actually went south. I'll talk about the intent for this as well as the player loadouts at the end, but this is sort of how things are recorded. You can also see the player groups as well. There's us over at the sign. Since everything's been recorded, it's time to actually do the detailed load. So here goes the detailed load. We're going to load everything, and we make sure we're playing as the Persist character. You just need to make sure that whoever is playing the Persist 1 character is the person who actually has the correct save data, which is why I would say it should always be the mission maker. In just a moment, there we go, we've lost one of our magazines. If we check our backpack, we don't have it anymore, and if we look, it's magically inside of here, because that's where we put it. There's our magazine, there's our frag grenade, our earplugs if we want them, there's our pistol. And if we go over to here, you'll notice, actually if we check this, refuel, check remaining fuel, we will have 9,999 liters left inside of this. There we go. Inside of the supplies, there is 940 supplies, and of course, if we go over to the Badger and we get in as the gunner seat, you'll notice we have 45 rounds for this one, 35 rounds for this one. They will reload at the start of the operation. They'll do it all automatically, don't worry. And 158 for this, and the correct number of reloads as well. So that is the basic demonstration of how Persist works. There's two things I'd like to touch on before wrapping up. First, what are you actually meant to do with this? To start with, it's a story-making mod, basically. That's the intent of how it's supposed to work. It's not meant to record every single thing down to the minute detail, including, moving all the AI around as well, because there wouldn't be much AI to move around at the end of an ArmA operation anyway. In my case, I'm using with NR6 as hell, which I've also worked on, so I can just move around the objectives and the AI commander takes care of the rest. But you could use this with, carefully planned operations, you could use this with the resistance operation, insurgency, post-apocalypse, zombies, and all that sort of stuff, whatever you want. If you just want things to be recorded, you could just use it with a standard mission and just, have one fob that you always happen to operate out of. So that, over time, you guys can slowly customize the fob, and as you steal enemy vehicles or, steal enemy weapons and such into your fob itself. You can basically do whatever you want with this, and the main idea for the recording of the group data is to give the mission maker ideas and kind of how to style the next mission. For instance, in the Pegasus Fallen campaign, I noticed that there was still one group of enemy AI who was ambushing us in this area who had survived. They actually ended up taking out 3 vehicles and myself among a few others, but there was one group that we didn't end up counterattacking and finding. They actually slipped away and we lost them. When I found they were still alive, I set in the second operation that headed to the south and regrouped with the rest of their troops and then ended up attacking us sort of up this MSR and sort of hitting us from behind in Chalkea. They ended up shooting most of Logi, it turns out, who got ambushed when they were busy playing around with crates. There's a million things you could do in that same vein. If you found, for instance, there were a bunch of tanks that had randomly ended up on one side of the battlefield, you could decide the enemy tries an armored push from that direction at the start of the next time, or maybe just Pyrgos has a bunch of tanks in it. All those thoughts I will leave up to you. The last thing I want to note is player loadouts. They are currently not a brilliant system, I'm not 100% happy with them, and they're very much an optional thing. The reason being is it's saved based on who the player is. That means if I save my kit as the logistics leader, but then I load my kit as the, say, platoon leader, I'm going to load the logistics leader's kit, so I'll have a P90 and the fortify tool. I won't have what I should actually have as platoon leader. The most likely first update to Persist, which myself and the Cadians are currently working on, as I mentioned earlier, will basically change it so that it works on a slot-based system instead. For instance, here is the squad leader of 1-2, that is a slot, and let's say a player, let's call him John, plays him for Operation 1, and then in Operation 2, Bob plays him. Well, whatever gun that John had at the end of Operation 1, whatever ammo and magazines, Bob would get at the start of Operation 2. This means that players can swap roles or drop out of operations, or you can add more roles and so on and so forth. It's currently not in, but we're working on including it, but I do need to actually release this mod at some point before I fall to the endless game of feature creep, which I've already done. I was meant to release this mod about 12 hours ago, and I've added 2 more features in that time. I shouldn't have done that. I think that summarizes a lot. If anything breaks, DM me and I will cry and then fix it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy Persist, and if you're one of those weird people who, like myself, watched something that you're never gonna ever do, like you don't even own ArmA 3, but you watched an entire explanation of how one of the mods works, hi, I hope you enjoyed my little quips, and I hope this video was mildly entertaining. Carry on with your incredibly boring life. Farewell.